The ANC and IFP have started historic high-level talks, but the discussion on reconciliation may have already hit a stumbling block. For more on this, we're now joined on the line by political analyst Xolani Dube. Mr. Dube, thank you so much for making the time this morning. Let's just backtrack a bit before talking about the actual issues as to what brought about the resumption of these talks that were first held decades ago between the late former President Nelson Mandela and Mr. Buthelezi, who is the former leader of the IFP.
I think there is a misconception to label these talks as talks about the peace between the IFP and the ANC. I don't think that is about that. The talk is about the issue of power sharing within the political elite of the ANC as well as of the IFP. Because you have to bear in mind that recently our electoral results have shown that the ANC and IFP, to a certain extent, they are bleeding, and there is no municipality that is going to be at the hands of either the ANC or the IFP outrightly. And so these are the coalition talks about the power sharing. It has nothing to do with the issues of peace and reconciliation or about what happened in KwaZulu-Natal in the past.
I hear what you're saying, and it is correct, but there is the historical context to these two parties that cannot be ignored before they move ahead on certain issues, isn't there?
I think maybe if they use that ticket, is an unfortunate way of using it. Because when you talk about peace and reconciliation, you need to involve social institutions like churches, the NGOs, and even the people who were the victims of such things that happened in the past. But if you only enclave it into political elite, in the province, I think that is very unfair, and they are using it for their own political power preservation. One can conclude it, but that's why I'm saying it has nothing to do with the issues of peace and about the mishappening of the past. It is about their reconsideration of power towards 2021, because they are aware, as I've said, that none of these two political parties is going to have an outright majority in a number of the municipalities. And bear in mind that this talk has been resuscitated by the fact that in Johannesburg, ANC and IFP, they made a kind of a pen at the back of certain municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, like Yomzala and Khumalo municipality. And so those are the dynamics of power sharing, but it has nothing to do really with the ordinary people who were at the receiving end of the 1980s political violence.
Let's explore the power sharing focus that you're talking about, Mr. Thulasizwe Buthelezi, saying that the ANC is not committed to this process. As you were saying just now, the concessions that the IFP made in Gauteng. Do you think the African National Congress is being a dishonest participant in this process?
Look, it's very difficult to spell it out, because, you know, in politics, it is about the negotiations of fork-tongued individuals. You know, people, they look for their own selfish interests. And even when they go to negotiations, they don't really open up their cards. And so even here, you remember that before, there were kind of coalition in KwaZulu-Natal in certain municipalities between the ANC and the NFP. But sooner the ANC gets more majority warmth, and then those coalition or those alliances simply evaporate. And so that's the nature of politics. When you are when your back is against the wall, you need someone to save you, and then when you are in a safer space, and then what you do is simply sacrifice that person, that individual. And so that's the nature of politics. But as I'm saying, ANC and IFP, they've been in this roller coaster for years. And remember that once in KwaZulu-Natal, there was a coalition in terms of provincial government between the ANC and the IFP, where Xolani Dube and Dube were part of the provincial government. And so it's not something new. It's something that we are used to. But at a certain point, we know that this coalition or this working relationship, they always end.
Let's imagine that the African National Congress makes up for these concerns that the IFP has and the conversation continues. What could come out of an agreement between these two parties?
Look, it's going to be very difficult because one of the issues is the issue of changing that municipality from Xolani to something that you and I and others, we don't know yet, because there is this kind of contention that the book that he wrote, The Chief with the Double Agenda, never sits well with the leader of the IFP. And so when now you change the municipality to something else, and then it begs a lot of questions regarding the issue of renaming some of these municipalities, because we might be setting a precedent to say there is a municipality named after the ANC hero and then the DA took over power. Are they going to change those names? And so that's why I'm saying that the issue of power fluidity in our country, because you have to remember that the architectures of power matrix in this country, they designed it in such a way that there is no political party that will ever enjoy an absolute power. Look at the Western Cape. Look recently what is happening at Nelson Mandela, at Tshwane, as well as in Johannesburg, and in some of the municipalities here in KwaZulu-Natal. And so it clearly shows that the electorate are no longer having confidence in this political system. And the people who are at the receiving end are the political elite. Hence, you see them now moving around trying to reconcile their powers and trying to have negotiating on how to preserve themselves and make themselves relevant. And so I think there will be lots of things that we as South Africans, we need to negotiate around the electoral system and how the power is being structured in this country. Because as you can see, it's only the political elite, like in Tshwane, in PE, who are in negotiations at our expense. And the people who are excluded are the ones who place this political elite into power. And so I think unless these political parties or us as South Africans will reconfigure the power matrix in this country, that's why we can talk about the issues of outright majority, this and that. But so far, I think we are going to face this dilemma where political parties will always, like IFP and ANC, will always invoke our historical mishappen in order to preserve the now in terms of power.
So you say that at the center of these efforts is a strategy to prevail at the local elections next year. The President Cyril Ramaphosa, has been going around the country, has been to KZN to try and launch the district development model. How has there been a buy-in of this model in KZN particularly?
Look, KZN is one of the very interesting provinces when it comes to the power matrix of our country, because there is also the issue of the Ingonyama Trust, the high-level panel on the assessment of key legislation led by Ubaba Ukhalma Menkande. They made a recommendation in relation to the Ingonyama Trust, but recently, Umama Uthogo Didiza, he simply overlooked those recommendations, and she said that, look, the status quo is going to go on in relation to Ingonyama Trust. And so it shows really that even the traditional leaders in our province, to a certain extent, they have a voice and they have an influence, because bear in mind that KwaZulu-Natal is highly rural. You get me? And so for any political party to make inroads in these rural areas, They need to negotiate with the authorities that are governing these rural areas. And so that's why I'm saying, moving forward, we'll see lots of negotiation between ANC, even with the traditional leaders. And you'll see patronage being dispensed also to traditional leaders. This patronage is dispensed at the back of this political organization to have an entrance into these enclave spaces of traditional leaders. And so that's why I'm saying it's give and take.
So having listened to you in this conversation, you're saying this process that's underway is merely political and a tussle for power more than about the concerns of people on the ground. Is there a case for communication between the African National Congress and the IFP?
Look, you know what is very confusing here? When IFP and ANC got to their own elite roundtable discussion, they pretend as if this discussion has to do about the well-being of the ordinary people. People in KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC and the IFP, I'm talking about the ordinary people who wake up in the morning and take a taxi to work. They are not in conflict. They are in one agreement that says the social delivery in this province is being hindered by the fact that the political elites are corrupt, the political elites are above the law, they are above the law. But for ANC and the IFP political elites, they are using our concerns for their own power preservation, as I said. And so I think a number of people of KwaZulu-Natal, they are very concerned about what is happening in the Zondo Commission, as we have heard about the Amingo case of Mike Mabuya Pulu, Peking Gonyane, and the others. And people of KwaZulu-Natal are very concerned about the issue of Sbongfeni Dlomo as being outlined by the public protector regarding the mobile clinic. The people of KwaZulu-Natal are very concerned about the state of the municipalities that is not really servicing their needs. They are not concerned about the past. They were victims of the past, but they are saying to themselves, look, we can't be also the victims of the now, where we really need service delivery, where we need water, when we need proper education for our kids, where we need security, but the only thing that we have to be discussing is how we were confused in the past to an extent that we have to kill each other. People, they need the discussion of the now that is progressive and that is very futuristic. But for political organization or the political elite to remain relevant is to keep on unpeeling, keep on stirring these issues that happened to a number of KwaZulu-Natal in the past, of which is very unfortunate.
Is it significant at all that apparently these talks, the genesis of these talks is a conversation between President Cyril Ramaphosa and former leader of the IFP, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, and not with the current leader, Uvelenkosi Hlabisa?
Look, these talks are institutional now. It's no longer about Mandela and Buthelezi. Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi. These talks, as I said, they're becoming a smokescreen for power. You get what I mean? Because if it was about the real genuine issues between the IFP and the ANC constituents, we were going to see them consulting their constituents. And bear in mind that there was a truth and reconciliation. You get what I mean? And so I don't think that they are political organizations that can go outside the truth and reconciliation and have their own peace talks. All of these peace talks that you have been witnessing, it was peace talks mainly about the power sharing, not really peace talks that you and we understand. These are about power sharing. And what's very interesting, if you have listened to Sentuli, he made it clear that there is nothing really that differentiates IFP from the ANC. and there's more common issues between IFP and ANC, and those common issues is about themselves. You get what I mean? Because if we talk about pure politics, one has to ask himself, what is the ideological reconciliation, political ideological reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC? You get what I mean? And so that's why I'm saying this kind of talk, it opens the can of worms to lots of public discourse around this IFP and ANC negotiation, because we know these are not genuine negotiations. These are just negotiations between the elite who are trying to preserve their political power. Nothing else, nothing more.
When you ask what the ideological reconciliation is in this particular instance, another conversation that has been taking place in the country is about the emergence of coalition politics. You don't think this features in this instance?
No, that's why I said that mainly what propped or what ignited this negotiation is the coalition, or is the pact that the IFP made with the ANC in Johannesburg at the back of that municipality known as Xolani and other municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, to say, look, if you give us Johannesburg as the ANC, what we can do, we can support you to have certain municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. And so that's what initiated this negotiation, and also to mitigate the reality that there is no single political organization that is going to have an overwhelming majority to govern or to rule certain municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. And so I think that they are being futuristic in their negotiations to say, look, we've already made consensus on certain issues, and now we go to 2020 with this understanding that post-2020, once they are resolved, we can simply go into coalition. But as I've said it before, NFP went into coalition with the ANC, and the NFP was at the receiving end. And you know also that the ANC went into coalition with the IFP in the provincial government, and the ANC was at the receiving end. And so that's why I'm saying this is the nature of this power dynamics when it comes to coalition and talks in this province.
Mr. Dube, we'll watch these talks as they unfold. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thanks a lot to you as well as to the viewers at home.
In other news,